streaming live now.
Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. If you make a roll call, please.
Mr. Fike,
I'm here.
Mr. Delahunt, Dr. Siemens,
Here.
Mr. Matthews, Mr. Peugeot.
Here.
Okay, hopefully you've read the minutes of the October 21st meeting. If there's no corrections, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll approve them as submitted. Move to approve them as submitted. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, those are passed. For everybody in the audience, this is an adjudication hearing, so if you're going to give testimony, you'll need to be sworn in. So if you would raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. You are sworn in. Okay, the first item on the agenda is 1030 Sloan Street, an area variance that was tabled from the last meeting because Mr. Peugeot wasn't here. Alec, if you would go through it again and kind of bring us up to date.
Of course. So 130 Sloan Street, it's currently zoned R140 single-family residential. Its surrounding zoning is also R140 residential, and then commercial service. Surrounding uses are all residential. Existing use of this property is a residential. So they're proposing a 6-foot fence along the entire southern property line. Now, in this case, the neighbor to the south has opposite front and backyards to the northern applicant's property. So for example, the applicant's front yard is the neighbor's backyard. So in this case, they're applying for a variance for, the applicant's applying for a variance for the front and side yard because technically the applicant's backyard permits the 6-foot fence that is abutting the southern neighbor's front yard. You can kind of see with this image on the right here a little better. So the immediate neighbor to the south has expressed concern in the past meeting that installing the 6-foot fence would prohibit him to access his home for regular maintenance such as gutter cleaning. And he also mentioned a concern that a fence could violate an existing easement agreement between the two properties. And I believe by the last meeting, it was motioned to bring a new drawing kind of showing the easement or where the fence would be on the easement, which I believe the applicant handed out to us tonight. Based on what we have, given the circumstance of this property, planning staff still has no objection to the requested variance.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sampson, the office, is there anything additional you want to add at this time?
I really didn't hear the whole thing. Hopefully,
I'm sorry, can you come up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Would you come up just for the record, state your name and your address again, please?
yes, my name is Salvador Santana. I live at 1030 Sloan Street. And if you get the drawing here that if you look at the south side, that line right there, Mr. Fisher's house is in my property line. So his overhang is three and a half foot on my property. So a few years ago, I let him have easement agreement because he was complaining a lot. I was cutting grass over there, I was breaking leaves, and I kept telling him that's my property. So he had to go to court. Yeah, I get a lawyer. He had to get a lawyer, and then I had to get property surveyed. So I had the line. I got my markers. If you could tell right here, I put down 3.5 foot that I let him have. Not have, part you can use. I used to have a fence all the way around my backyard before. I tore it down. Now I wanted a 6-foot fence. Now he's against it. But that's my property line. That's my property. And I just wonder if I can have it, I'm allowed to do it. I wanted a higher, but 6 foot was, I guess, because my neighbor, the electric company, they got an 8-foot fence. So I wanted mine higher, just the same, but 6 foot, I guess, is good enough.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against this request? You'd come to the microphone, please.
Barry Vermeeren, I'm an attorney representing Stan Fisher. 4-foot fence is fine, but there, if you've been out there, I noticed in the minutes you'd gone out there, there is a picture window right next to, in the middle of that, of Stan's house, right where that 6-foot fence would go. It's an old-fashioned bow window. And so we're not against a 4-foot fence, but if you follow your own guidelines for a variance, you have to find special conditions of the property. Well, if he wants to shield it, it's the end of the street. There's nothing on the other side of Stan Fisher's house but a creek. And Stan's house is 20 feet tall. Okay, so you don't need a 6-foot fence when you've got a 20-foot tall building 3.5 feet away from it. So there's no special conditions. It's not a unique hardship. Stan Fisher thinks it'll harm him. It's a condition which is not unique in the zoning area. And nothing in the zoning has created the hardship. And a 4-foot fence, that's not an unnecessary hardship to Mr. Santana. So if you just go through your code section, there's no way you could vote for a variance. That's all.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor or against this request? Any comments, questions from the board?
None for me.
I guess I get a little confused between the front yard and the backyard because of the two properties
Right.
being as offset as they are. To erect a 4-foot fence in the front yard, we'd still need a variance because that's typically a 3-foot, right, for a front yard?
Correct, yeah, so the proposal's for the side and the front of the applicant's property. Based on the code alone, the backyard, technically, he can put a 6-foot fence there, but, based on the easement agreement, was kind of the confusion on if there was any extra information that we were withheld from the last meeting on that would stop the 6-foot fence from being put up in place there.
Okay. Yeah, it is a little, it is unique simply because we're looking at houses that
Two
are,
offset houses.
they're offset from each other, and B, Mr. Smith actually enters from the east. He
Right.
does not have access from the west, which is Sloan Street. Mr. Santana has access from both sides. He has an alley in the back, and his main entrance is the front, which is Sloan Street.
Right.
And I did go out and look, and yes, the property pins are in, and if you line those up, Mr. Smith's house, his basic house, the brick wall is right on the property line, and his overhang is
3.5
onto Mr.
feet.
Santana's property.
Right.
And there had been a fence right underneath, I think it was right underneath the gutter before. Mr. Santana, is that where, the other fence had been right underneath the gutter of his house?
No, I think it's a little more north. It wasn't, that close, underneath the gutters. I mean, he had, it was just about a foot.
Okay, but what, the fence you are proposing to put back is gonna be in the same place as the one that was there?
Pretty close.
Okay,
If he should have plenty of room over there, he never uses that window or nobody's home all the time. Nobody's home.
okay,
I never seen him use it before. Only time I seen him use it, I mean, the only people I used to see is his mom and dad years ago before they passed away. Mom's the only one who used it, and he never used it. That window or door, whatever, attorney's talking about.
But there's a door and a window. And there's That's a big window, bay window.
Yeah, I know what
Do 4 feet.
This doesn't show the window, but that's the casing for the bay window, and it's a 3-window window. And so, I mean, you don't need a 6-foot fence 3 feet outside your bay window.
If you look at this picture, there's some stakes in here, and that's where the other fence had been, which appears that that's where the new fence is going back.
Thanks. Sure. Similar.
It's all the same, just copies? Yeah.
Where's the window? Can you tell me the big window? Is it on the other side of this?
Must be. Yeah, because I think it must be on the side of that, because that's that overhang that the property line's actually right
A 6-foot
here.
fence in a side yard, I mean, we got 2 front yards,
That's same.
okay, and
They're all
2
the same.
backyards. But a 6-foot fence in the side yard is an exception, okay, and it should remain an exception unless there's a very good reason to allow a 6-foot fence. 4-foot fence, fine.
At the, just to bring you up to date, at the previous meeting, Mr. Smith also was not here, but he had a neighbor come, he had a list of complaints that they had issues there with Mr. Santana, but they were all due to cleanliness.
Okay.
Had a boat in your backyard at one time, Mr. Santana?
I still got a boat, my boat.
Right, but it was over closer to the property, now it's up on your,
It's always been in my property, it's over there, used to have a 1-car garage,
correct,
and then my boat was parked there.
right. And now it's gonna be a 2-car garage.
It was on cement. Now, I wanted to build a 2-car garage, I had to tear that down, because it was too close to his house. Now I had to move my cement pad 15 foot away from his house. I said, you know, it cost me more money, I was gonna add another pad, instead of tearing that down and moving it, and, you know, it cost me a lot of money, and it was there already. I don't know why I had to tear it down for.
Right. Anyway, there's the previous meeting, the complaints didn't have anything to do with the fence, it had more to do with the cleanliness of the property and, which aren't issues that we deal with as far as the fence, but it was the complaint, and it's like, okay, fine, we have neighbors that don't get along.
Makes sense. Mr. Santana, I guess I do have a question, and I apologize if you asked this last month, or if you were asked this last month, but why is a 6-foot fence good enough and a 4-foot not?
Could you please come up again, sorry?
Because I thought I heard you say, you know, you'd like 8, but 6 is good enough.
Right.
What's the magic?
I
What's the
wanted
difference
more
between 4 and
privacy.
6?
Because Mr. Fisher complains, and when we have a party, cookout outside, and he'd be looking out the window and, you know, just being nosy, and so I just want more privacy. That's why I wanted a little higher. And he just caused a lot of problems. You know, standing around staring at people when, you know, I got company, and he'd be staring there, you know, I don't know if he's trying to cause trouble, whatever, I don't know. But I would just want more privacy around my property. More privacy, that's all I want.
Okay, thanks. And Mr. Vermeeren?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vermeeren, where is that bay window?
It's right in the middle of his house, okay, right in the middle. The 6-foot fence would go right in front of it, and he also has a side door, or a back door to the house, which has a glass screen, I think storm door on it. And so it's right where the 6-foot fence would go. I mean,
Yeah.
3.5 feet away from it.
There's a concrete pad right down there.
Oh, it's
That's
right
where the
there.
door is.
Got it.
And then the window would be further to the west.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, my point is that the zoning code, you can only grant a variance where there's special conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, creating a unique hardship that is different than anything else in the same zoning code. Okay? And while a 4-foot fence is permitted, and that's given, and you put it there, there was a court case, and there's a line drawn, and you can put a fence there, but just not a 6-foot fence.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to deny 6-foot fence in the side yard, but it would allow a 4-foot fence for the front yard, leaving the side yard as a 4-foot structure.
Okay, so you're, just to be clear, you want to deny the request for 6 feet
Correct.
everywhere and just allow 4 feet everywhere.
Which would allow it to go from 3 feet to 4 feet in the front yard.
Okay.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is the motion clear?
Yep.
Okay, any questions on the motion? None, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fike?
Yes.
Dr. Siemens?
Yes.
Mr. Peugeot?
Yes.
The variance as requested is denied, but it's been adjusted to 4 feet rather than 3 feet for the front. The next item on the agenda is for 2701 Cleveland Road, a height variance.
So the applicant for this one's O Sports for Cedar Point Park LLC. The current zoning is commercial recreation, and surrounding zoning to this one is also commercial recreation. The surrounding uses is all vacant parcels to the north and the west. To the east is the extension to the park, the Cedar Point Park uses. And then the south's empty land / residential uses. The existing use of this one's an indoor sports center. Proposed use is an addition of an esports center and dormitory expansion. The variance that they're applying for is to allow a building that exceeds the 40-foot height limit. They are proposing a 60-foot building, and then also, instead of 2 stories, which is, the code says 40 feet or 2 stories is permitted, they also want a variance for the 4 stories. So the variance would be for 60 feet and 4 stories of the building. Staff feels the variance not substantial and would not be a substantial alteration to the character of this neighborhood. A variance is the only method to resolve the predicament. The spirit and intent of the zoning code to be satisfied with the granting of this variance, and the variance does not go against the general purpose of the code. The situation is unique and does not create unnecessary hardship for the applicant, and we don't believe it would negatively impact the public health, safety, or general welfare. So in conclusion, planning staff does not have any objection to the requested variance.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this request? If so, please step to the mic, give us your name and your address, please.
I'm Nick Braddock, project architect with O Sports. The only thing I'd like to add is that the height would only be for about, it's a little over a third of the building for that height variance. The rest of the building would be the 2 stories and under 40 feet.
Can you tell me where on the property the building's going to be built?
Yep, so it's in the, on the dark gray box shown on the display up there. So to the west, just north of the blue championship court that sticks out of the existing building. So it'd be tucked behind that.
Okay, so it's an addition as opposed to freestanding?
Correct.
Okay, so is it going to fill in that
Yes,
corner?
it fills in the grass
Okay.
space right now.
All right.
So all that dark gray box, the white is the existing building.
Okay.
That the U shape you see, that would be the 4 stories and 2 stories above. So that's the 4-story piece. The rest would be 2 stories, 34 feet.
My question is, and I'm not sure how it affects the variance, but you're adding a lot of square footage, a lot of additional occupancy. Are you adding more parking?
We are adding the parking to the north. I'm not exactly positive on the number, but we hit the count. So there's the blue shaded area. There's 2 to the north, 1 on each side of the retention pond. Then we're also adding spots just north of the building that are currently, there's no parking spaces there. And then also a parking lot to the west in that little peninsula grass piece.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the parking was approved in the site plan this past summer with Planning
Perfect.
Commission.
Good, thank you.
Yep.
It's not a reason to turn you down. I just want to know.
Yeah.
It was my own personal, I hate.
Yeah.
We all get questions later on. How did you approve that and add all these people in there and there's not enough parking to start with? So it's,
Is there an elevation drawing
Yeah,
of
that's,
this? Thank you. So this must be from the west?
yes, there's one from the west.
Yeah, there we go. West, east, okay.
Yeah, this would be
South.
from the, south, so that's the dark gray is the existing.
Right. Okay.
So the existing building's 45 at the high end.
Got it.
So we'd be-
Okay.
It'd be 23 above that.
so you're
existing.
looking at this, then your tall space is going to be right here.
Correct.
So it's kind of tucked
So
in.
here.
Tucked in right behind this.
Yes, okay,
This portion.
great. Great. Any other questions?
Did you?
I did, thank you. No questions.
I do have a question for the applicant, just to clarify. I think I saw 2 different numbers. I think one was 60 and one was 62 based on the application. What was the actual height you guys are looking for?
62.
62, okay. I believe I said 60, so we'll change that to 62.
62 is what you have listed in the report, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
What I
if
read.
there's no other questions, we're ready for a motion.
Although I think it is slightly substantial, I'll make a motion to approve this variance.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the variance as presented, which is 62 feet height and 4 stories. I think those are the 2 variances we're looking for.
Yes.
Okay. And we have a second. Any questions on the motion? If you'd call the roll?
Mr. Fike?
Yes.
Dr. Siemens?
Yes.
Mr. Peugeot?
Yes.
The variances are approved.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is for, I think it's floodplain. It's for 1225 Cedar Point Road, a floodplain variance. Now, we've seen this house previously. There was something else that he was in here for.
Yeah, he was here for a side yard setback of this garage
Okay.
that he got a variance for. Now he wants the floodplain,
Okay.
if I recall correctly. It's zoned R175, single-family residential, and the surrounding zoning matches that one. It's used as residential. Proposed use is still going to be residential, but just an expansion of the existing structure. Variance requested is to allow construction of addition to the garage 8 inches above the base flood elevation, whereas the code requires 2 feet. And I would like to note that on November 8th, I believe, or maybe it was the 9th, that City Commission passed a motion to more or less waive the 2-foot requirement, but the applicant wanted to have 3 extra weeks of construction time, so he wanted to go through this application, because technically by the 30-day mark after the 9th, I believe it was Monday, this would be irrelevant. He would be allowed to do this without a variance.
Okay.
But his basic need here is he needs the height of the garage to accommodate larger vehicles and to maintain consistent eave levels. The new garage floor must be lower than the existing house floor elevation. So instead of building the garage higher up, he's building it lower into the ground. Based on, it was the 8th, not the 9th, on the City Commission's 11-8 approval, staff recommends the granting of the variance just a little sooner than City Commission's request would have allowed this to be done legally.
Okay. Well, no one's here, so any questions?
And here again, it would be kind of nice to have an elevation drawing of this to know.
I might have it. I at least have a site plan. They didn't really give me an elevation drawing for this application.
If I remember, the garage was going to be into the side yard setback on that side, and
Right.
it was.
Correct, so that was approved, I believe
He
in
was going
March.
to give us a garage door front and back so that he could have
Right.
access to the back.
I recall that, but I didn't remember. So this garage pad will be lower than the existing garage
Correct.
pads?
Yeah.
Well, as long as we don't see any liability for flood water flowing through his property, I'll make a motion to approve this variance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions?
No.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Fike?
Yes.
Dr. Siemens?
Yes.
Mr. Peugeot?
Yes.
The variance is approved. Is there anything else for us?
That would be it. We do have some applications in for next month's meeting. We have
Okay.
310 Minot Street, an area variance, and then 212 Decatur Street is a use variance.
Then if, and we had talked before you came as to, Mr. Matthews is up for renewal, and his attendance has not been stellar. Not that we're making a suggestion that we replace him, but the commission, it's Dave's job, has to consider that. I don't know if it comes from Dave or if it comes, the commission members, or if it comes from Eric.
Probably come from higher.
I mean, when he's here, he asks good
It's
questions.
fine, but I'd like a little more
I'm not
dependability.
sure.
Yep, it's the appointment of the city commission.
Okay. Well, Dave, you got a job to do.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
Ta-da.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Back out.